my people. Welcome back to the Breakdown panel. We've got the entire crew in the building today, so you know it's going to be a good one. And we're picking up from where we left off last week because, my people, make it make sense. Just make it make sense that Africa is the youngest continent in the world. Our median age is just 19, yet the average age of our presidents is over 65. Make that make sense. A continent that's bursting with youth, creativity, and innovation is still governed by leaders who were born before independence. Now, that's a massive generational gap between leadership and the people. And this is not just symbolic. It's a real problem with real consequences for our political and economic future. We can't talk about building a new Africa without addressing this problem. So today, we're asking a bold question. Why does Africa keep recycling the same faces while ignoring the talent, expertise, and global exposure of its own people, especially the youth, women, and the diaspora? I mean, think about it. Across the world, you see Africans are running Fortune 500 companies. They're managing multi-billion-dollar budgets, launching startups, and shaping policy in Washington or London or Dubai, especially Nigerians. But when it comes to leadership back home, political, economic, or institutional, they are often shut out. So why? Is it mistrust? Is it power gatekeeping? Or are our systems simply not built to let new voices in? And most importantly, what is it going to take to change that? To build a continent where young people, women, and diaspora Africans aren't just cheering from the sidelines, but actually shaping the decisions that define our future. That's what we're unpacking today on the Breakdown panel, the leadership problem, why Africa's best and brightest are locked out of power. Now, do me a favor and subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell for alerts. And also, share this video with your group chats and let someone know that they need to be a part of the conversations that we are having here at PanaGenius TV. Hey there! Before we continue with the episode, I want you to quickly pause. Visit BlackStarsExperience.com and sign up for our upcoming conference in New York City this November. This is where leaders, allies, and change makers are coming together to open doors, share opportunities, and push the culture and the community forward. From our eye-opening discussions, expert-led sessions, to a career expo and networking opportunities, if you're serious about your career, your business, your future, you must be in the room. Because this is more than an event. This is a movement. It's about creating pathways for all of us to rise together. November 13th and 14th, New York City. Hey, don't just hear about it later. Be there. Secure your seat at the BlackStars Experience because your future deserves it. All right, now let's get back to the episode. Let's get into it and welcome our panelists, Fanta Kamara, Global Affairs Analyst, Hornsby Ni Intre, Geopolitical Researcher, and Mylin Kin, political and social commentator. Guys, welcome back. How's everyone doing?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
Be here with the Furious Four.
Including
Yes,
yourself.
it's good to see you all. It's good to see you all. So I want to sound off from last week. I know, Mylin, we missed you. I have a question for you coming up. But before we get into that, Ni and Fanta, anything you want to sound off from last week's conversation?
Don't let me know.
Yeah. That's probably a mistake because I'm about to rant.
Oh boy. Well, rant in 2 minutes. 2 minute rant, please. 2 minutes. Go
Sure.
for it, Ni.
So there's this thing that I do that anytime our videos go up, I take a casual look through comments, right? And it is no secret that I am the enfant terrible I'm the villain of the
No, you're
of us
not.
four.
I
I
don't think you
am.
are.
But that's all well and good. That's all well and good. I think in the beginning, I thought it was all fun. In the beginning of our conversation, I thought it was all fun. Until recently, I thought the comments I've got saying meaner. And again, I have a thick skin, so
Hmm.
I don't actually mind. I would
Mm.
be willing to learn from anyone at all. I like to teach, but I also like to be taught. But I also know that blade cannot be sharpened by cotton. Blade
Mm.
will not be sharpened by cotton.
Mm.
Hmm.
And that's speaking to the fact that I would like to learn, but I would like to learn from someone or people who have something to say. Um, it actually reminds me of a conversation, or at least the clash between Marcus Garvey and W.E.B. Du Bois at the onset of the 20th century. Now, these are two people who loved Africa or loved Black people. They had views on Pan-Africanism, but they had two very different views on Pan-Africanism. For
Yeah.
some of us who have looked at it both as writers and as people in academia, you can tell that Marcus Garvey was a right-wing capitalist, let's go back to Africa, let's build businesses sort of person. He was a Black separatist, he was a Black nationalist. He wanted to leave America so much that he actually even cooperated with the KKK, because the KKK told him that they could facilitate Black people leaving Africa. So Marcus Garvey went into alliance with the KKK. But that's a different kind of Pan-Africanism from W.E.B. Du Bois. At least Du Bois, when he started, was actually quite elitist, right? For those of you who are familiar, you remember W.E.B. Du Bois's talented tenth. The idea that there's this talented, magnificent group of Black people who would provide leadership for others to follow. I guess that is also connected to the conversation we are going to have today about expertise abroad and how they can be tapped back home. But these two men had very different views of Pan-Africanism.
Yeah.
Long story short, W.E.B. Du Bois was a socialist. At least after 1945, he became a socialist. Marcus Garvey was an avowed capitalist. He hated socialism, but both people actually advocated Pan-Africanism. It's actually not different. That disagreement is not different from the Pan-Africanism that was advocated by Jomo Kenyatta, the first leader of Kenya, and Kwame Nkrumah, the first leader of Ghana. Why am I bringing these up? People love Africa in different ways. People love Africa in different ways. And I would hope that for people who say they love Africa, they would view these different ways as complementary. They would
Yeah.
view these different ways as, asking questions of the other. Because as a socialist, as a person who identifies as a socialist, I don't think I'll have all the answers. But then I would not like to be criticized. And in fact, it got very personal. Someone said I have been paid. In fact, a few people said I was paid to spout certain views, or I was a sellout. And it actually got to me, because I have a thick skin, but to call me a sellout, I'm like, have you listened to my views? I'm always
Yeah.
about class. I'm always about socialism. You think corporations are about to give money to someone like me who says there's something fundamentally wrong with the way they make money? You think you're going to give money to me? And so, listen, I would hope that conversations like this would
Yeah.
open people's eyes. It would be educative. If you already click the video, if you click the video to listen to views or be excited by views that you already agree with, it's not education, it's entertainment.
Doesn't change. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
thank you,
if you
Nee.
click the videos to all the videos that the views that you already agree with, if you're excited by them, then it's
Yeah.
just entertainment. So I
No,
guess
you're
that's what I wanted to sound off. Just
and that's a
let's
very, very
actually learn
important
off each
point.
other. Yeah.
That's a very, very important point. And thank you for taking the time to speak on that, because we are not going to grow if we all agree on the same thing, right? And that's not the point of this show, right? And I'm so glad that you gave that, historical background and context there, because the reason why the Organization of African Unity didn't come to pass, was it didn't happen, was because there were differences envisioned for the Pan-African leaders, the same people that we celebrate today, to your point, Nee, for their Pan-Africanism, couldn't agree on the best approach and the best way to achieve that, right? But one of the things that Kwame Nkrumah did was he was very, very respectful and actually encouraged debate. He encouraged dialogue. When everyone was trying to silence other leaders for what they believed in, he wanted to engage with those leaders. That's why he sat down with, MLK, invited him to Ghana's independence celebration, and also invited Malcolm X and had a meeting with him later on. Where are we going to go? How far can we go if we all agree on the same thing? And I do think that it's very, very important. The point of this show is to provide the platform for different perspectives, right? Different perspectives, and to engage intellectually about the perspectives and to bring, fact-based discussions on what is happening in our world, how we see it, how it shapes our reality. And every reality is different because of our experiences, right? So it's very important that we engage respectfully, right? When no one is being paid on this show. I've also been accused of that in some of my other videos. I'm like, what are these people talking about?
Can I get on someone's payroll if they're paying?
Seriously, who's paying? Where is that?
Sandra, who's paying you? Can I get on that payroll?
We do this because we love our continent. That's why we do it. Everyone on this panel has so much love for our continent, so much love for our communities. We want better. We want to build a better Africa. That's why we're here. So engage with us, right? Engage with us, and let's continue to have this dialogue and different perspectives. It is something that should be encouraged. So I want to thank you all again for doing this as well, because it's not easy also, being on a platform like this and exposing your views, right? And having people criticize or what have you. So I thank you guys for doing this and committing to this, week after week. And so Neith, thank you for delving into that. It's very important. All right, guys, so let's get into this week's discussion. And again, picking up from where we left off last week, right? We talked about the elections in Cameroon. And here's a quick update just to give our audience some context here. The presidential election was held on October 12th with President Paul Biya, who is now 92 years old, running for what would be his 8th term. Now, Issa Chiroma Bakary, who is a former ally turned opposition candidate, has publicly declared victory in the elections. He's claiming that the people have spoken, and he's calling on Paul Biya to concede. But of course, the claim is not yet official. So the Electoral Commission hasn't released final results, and the Constitutional Court has until October 26th to validate and announce the winner. So in the meantime, we're waiting, right? We're waiting, but tensions are rising in Cameroon with reports of protests in the capital, as well as accusations of fraud and vote tampering. So, Myling, I want to start with you, right? Because we missed you last week, and I'm really curious to hear your perspective on this topic. First of all, what's your take on our 92-year-old grandpa, Paul Biya, who is still running for president after 40 years in power?
Well, I'd like to correct you. It's not grandpa, it's great-grandpa.
Not great grandpa.
So my take on that is this is gatekeeping in real time. You ran the country for 40 years.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how long you've been in the political landscape before actually running the country. Your ideals are based on what your genesis was. How are you going to modernize your country? I don't see, and this is going to be an ageist comment, but I don't see the ability to learn anything new at 92. What is the willingness to modernize the country versus kind of just set your family's legacy?
Not even how ChatGPT works.
Like, this is what I'm saying, not to learn anything.
According to Fanta, he can't even turn on a computer, for God's sake.
This is what I mean. So we're talking 40 years of running the country, but let's talk about how long you've been in the political landscape. Think about what technology has come along that he probably never had to engage with. Can we even say he sent out an email before? And these are funny. It's
I
funny,
can't
but these are
confirm
real,
or deny.
and these are real things. So how can you run a country with essentially no knowledge of how to modernize the country?
Yeah. And Mylan, here's the thing that really baffles me about, all of this is leaders like Bia always claim that the reason why they need to remain in power is because no one else is qualified. No one else is qualified to lead after them, that the nation will somehow burn to the ground without me. So,
No,
Mylan, you're CEO of your own company. Imagine
yeah,
running it for 40 years and still saying there's no one capable of succeeding you.
yeah. I've
Okay,
been
you're
doing.
ready to retire. You're 92, but you got to keep going because there's no leadership pipeline. I mean, what does that say about you as a leader, first of all?
Listen, I've been
Interesting
12
thing.
years
Sorry,
in, and
sorry.
I
Before,
almost
yeah,
don't
I
want
don't
to
think
be
you'd be
CEO
92 in
anymore.
40 years.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
No, but that's besides the point, Nee. Go ahead, Mylan.
I say I've been doing it 12 years, and I don't even want to be CEO. So I can only imagine running a country this long. And look, let's call a spade a spade. Youngest continent, Africa. So which means we've learned things on a later scale as a continent. So now imagine if you in Cameroon, and we can look at Cameroon's development as a country. What is the willingness to want to modernize? This is, oh, if I get out of power, somebody may try to kill me. If I get out of power, I don't have any money. If I get out of power, that's what this is about. And if I can do this until I die, then
Yeah.
I'm good.
Well,
Everybody else for themselves. This is what I see with a 92-year-old trying to remain in power. There's
let's just
been no
What,
infrastructure.
but what does this say about to me, this represents failed leadership, right? If you're leaving and there's no one else able to step into then I mean, I'm sorry, but for me as a leader, if
Yeah.
I have to leave or even travel for a week and there is no one that I can trust to step in my shoes, I have failed as a leader.
look. That's the
Fanta?
obvious, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the that's the obvious. That's a rhetorical question. I'm like, almost. Look, let's even take it beyond the presidential age, right? We know he's 92, probably in real life 120. If you look
Oh
at his birth
gosh,
certificate,
Fanta, we cannot
probably
confirm or
we like
deny.
we
Well,
could dig up like
we
his
can
birth
confirm that.
certificate. Look, like back then you didn't have any like method of accurately documenting data. So probably like he was born on a corn farm, like on a beans farm. We don't know. They don't even know like what day it was. Like often the reference is, oh, when this king was in power and when that clan was shifted, when we moved clan. Dude, look, Europe median like the average cabinet member age in Europe, it's in their 40s.
Mm-hmm.
This is a continent who has understood what progression means, right? They have their flaws. That's probably a different conversation for a very different day. But you look at the average cabinet member age in Africa and is in their 50s, when 70% or a good 80% of the population is under 30. Like, what the heck are we doing? I mean, the generational gap is so massive. How are these 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, maybe 200 years old, some of them, right? How are they drafting national policies to ensure that they are applicable to the people they are leading? And you know, this is also on the people as well. We
Yeah.
cannot remove the responsibility from us as a people to continue to enable these octogenarians leaders thinking that they have anything like better to provide us or to help us improve or transform our continent. Let's just be very, very, very matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
These
So
leaders, these leaders and our people treat Africa like a retirement home. right?
Right.
These are
Mm-hmm.
retirees, like, who really just still thinks that they're in the age of telegraph and rotary, like, a dial telephone. We're in the age of smartphone, right? And e-skin. Very, very soon, they're actually testing out that technology today. If you hand these people, right, a key to a Tesla, they don't even know, like, how to turn it on, how to
Before,
even move that car,
before
right?
we get
They
to
think,
e-skin,
wait,
email
yeah,
first.
thank you. They think that Siri and Alexa are witchcraft. You put a Siri on, like, around an
Wait, who thinks
octogenarian.
that?
No, these octogenarians do. You put a Siri on, you go Siri and go, who's that? What is that? That's witchcraft. Black magic. What is this? What are you people doing? Uh-uh. They become frightened, right? Because that is their
Wow.
mindset. Everything is black magic and like a witchcraft when it comes to technology and innovation and transformation. They don't
Yeah.
understand it is foreign to them. We have to understand this.
So, so what are the structural and cultural barriers, right, that is keeping young and capable leaders from rising to power on the continent? Like, let's get real. Nee, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, everything has been said, really. If you think about it, we have a continent where leadership primarily tries to map, um, traditional African governance. It tries to map modern democracy, or tries to map the traditional African governance onto modern democracy. And that's why older people who become leaders of states are still sort of looked at in the way that you look at a chieftain, a tribal chieftain, or an ethnic monarch. There's this, and various social scientists, anthropologists, and political thinkers have actually talked about it. There are lots of papers within this particular subject that speaks
When you
about
start
how
bringing up
the
like
culture.
anthropology, it's like they're really like, right. It's often like done for like dead people, right?
So there's often this relationship we have with power, that is necessarily culminating in seniority in age. So it is a cultural
Mhm.
sentiment. It is a cultural sentiment that we shouldn't be afraid to
Yeah.
basically critique. We shouldn't be afraid to critique. Not everything about us is perfect. And so we should look at that, because we are dragging from the past things that we should have left in the past. So that's one of
Hmm.
the cultural or um, you know, um, structural foundations that proper people like Bia. But the funny thing is that there are exemplars. There are people who, even with age, have realized the need to leave the stage when the applause is at its highest, right?
Right.
Nelson
Right.
Mandela, Nelson Mandela refused. Nelson Mandela could have been president for life if he wanted to. That's how popular it was. He could have been president for life. He would have won
Hmm.
the election after 1999, but obviously exited the stage for Thabo Mbeki. Nyerere could have been president if he wanted to, exited the stage. So there are
Nelson
people from,
sellout, complete sellout.
pardon?
Nelson Mandela was a sellout.
Okay, so but the point I'm trying to make is that there are people from whom we can always learn. But the thing about age is also not just about seniority. It's also about what they represent, as they are really ceremonial heads. And Mylan and Fanta are right. These people are not executive active heads. They are ceremonial heads.
Mhm.
They are rubber stamping stuff. So we need to look at what status quo benefits, or what status quo benefits are there as they continue to be just ceremonial figureheads. Who stands to gain by trooping, pushing out a 92-year-old man to come run for power? It's interesting
Right.
that the person who is challenging him is also 79 years old.
Right. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, the man challenging him is 79 years
Make
old,
sense.
and
And so
yeah,
it's like you
it's
want
not
to be glad
it's
that
not a
someone
spring
is
chicken
challenging
himself.
him, but this guy is also
Yeah,
almost 80.
the person challenging him is not a spring chicken himself. So
Yeah,
I guess that for me, I would want to look at the interest that prop up these people, as well as the
Yeah.
cultural sentiments that make us feel that the grayer the better, probably the weaker the
yeah.
better. Experience. Look, we need to confront the cultural element that makes it that make it seem as if this is a thing to do or this is a way
Mm-hmm.
to go. Also, there's almost always, again, class interest. There's always class interest. There are people whose statuses are threatened by the fact that there could be a revolution in power. There could be there could be dynamic change. There are people whose class interests are threatened if there
Mm-hmm.
is a dynamic change. So I don't know if we have the time, but we could break down some of these things for our viewers.
Do you guys think that the pipeline, right, of a new generation of leaders, young leaders, are there? Do you even think the interest is there? Are young people engaged politically? Do they want to be in these leadership positions? Or is it really a pipeline issue that there's just no interest? I mean, how do you guys view that?
There is pipeline, and I think there is interest, but younger folks, they are approaching with logic and not that pragmatic approach of the cultural past. So they're bringing in structure, policy. This is something that many, the old guard, even here in corporate America, they're not accustomed to dealing with.
They
So
fear
now
change. Yeah.
they fear the change because you're talking people are genuinely bringing in systems to provide the fact if you go on vacation for a week, the business doesn't burn down. This, most governments in Africa are not set up for that structure. That's why it goes
Mm,
to the president and his trusted advisor. It becomes like a extended nepotism situation. Like it's, well, somebody in the current president's cabinet might be the next president. He wasn't the guy, but he was with that cabinet. So he keeps that gravy train going,
yeah.
right? I mean, and we could bring Liberia up, right? As we look at Eleanor and we look at our current president right now. Like it's how does that happen?
Gerontocracy. That's exactly how it happens. Look, let's be very matter of fact about this. The young generations are locked out by design. This is not something that we think is just natural. It's not. It's intentional. These cabal of grandfathers, right, have truly hijacked our continent. They think it's a family business where you can hire any outside managers, right? Oh, the notion of meritocracy, hiring someone or allowing fresh blood, fresh thinking to circulate, to even be entertained, it becomes a threat. They prefer patronage, right, over competence. And that is a real issue because they think that they are so entitled and they have kept the keys to Africa's transformation since independence, right? And look, we have to be very very direct with these people. These people are hijackers. They are the political mafias, right? That we as a generation have to understand. We have two choices. We either engage them in dialogue to turn over the keys nicely, play nice grandpas, right? Or we have to, and not even think about joining, not even asking to join, to have a seat
Right.
at the table, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
their tables are freaking rotten. Their tables are dilapidated. Like why would we want to sit at that table, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
dusted
Mm-hmm.
out. They haven't cleaned it in like a century. We have to understand our options are building a new table very similar to what the technology industry did, right? They
Yeah.
created their own table and every other industry came flying towards them because
Yeah.
these cabals are going to say, look, oh, small girls, small boy, especially with women, they lock you out. And they want to criminalize you every time you are assertive, when you have an opinion, when you have a voice. Instead of encouraging you to amplify that voice, they want to absolutely ensure that you continue to be subservient to them.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous. And we have to call it for what it is. This
Yeah.
is
And
not a
I
family business. We need fresh blood into our leadership. And it's not
yeah.
the question of are there competent people? There absolutely are.
And I think that it's important to flip the lens, right? Because when you do, then you really actually you realize how much power the youth has today, right? Because we are the masses. We are the, we are driving the growth of the continent. And so we have way more power than we actually think that we do. We can drive a lot more change than we actually think we do. So I want to ask you all about the role that you think, technology and youth movements, like what we're seeing right now in Madagascar. I mean, they've toppled their government. Gen Z just toppled their government. They sent him out, fleeing the country, right? They're demanding change. So, what role do you see, that technology, youth movements actually disrupting
Oh,
this old political order? Do you think
I'll,
that
co-
that's a
I'll,
real, yeah,
I'll,
go
Hey, can I
ahead,
just
Nate.
jump in here, like really quick before you answer that question? Like I just missed a few points that I want to add here. Look, one of the things that I think they have also done, right, to discourage the youth and like keep us out, is to play these psychological games, right? Um, uh, 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 Sort of do these psychoanalytics or roll out these psychoanalytics strategies, whether they know or not, right? So knowingly or unknowingly, by saying things like, "Oh, you guys are the future." What idiotic future? You say that, so we're thinking, "Oh, we're youth, we're the future," and the future happens like 20 years from now, like 30 years from now. And you, grandpa is still refusing to let go of the reins. But because they say that, the youth automatically thinks that, oh, they're preparing us, right? So it's very manipulative to even suggest that, because they don't want us to focus on what they're doing today, the decisions that they're making today. They're locking us out intentionally by making us feel, right? Feel some type of sentiment that they appreciate us or they see us. Instead,
Mhm.
they're making these decisions, signing these huge concession contracts for like 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, like giving away our minerals that are worth trillions for literally free, right? While they get to take kickbacks and make sure their wives and their girlfriends and their concubines, right, buy fake hair and do boob jobs and like butt jobs. They'd rather spend our money on that than ensuring that the villagers in Malawi or Soweto or Monrovia or Accra have access to adequate education and decent health care. This is what they do. So that
mm,
whole notion, that whole psychological trick of, you know what, you are the future, because they don't want us to pay attention to the corruption and the thievery that is happening today. Please, Nate,
Mhm.
go ahead.
Nate.
yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'd actually try to come back on something you said about the nature of African society. The nature of African society is that it is, largely conservative in that our ethics, the way we perceive new ideas, new technologies, is we approach the future with a lot of caution, right? We approach things that are non-traditional with a lot of caution. And it's the same sort of energy that greets all of these calls for youth involvement, because we seem to believe that what is tried and that is what conservatism is about. Political conservatism or cultural conservatism is the idea that institutions and traditions that are time tested should be defended, and that if change is to happen, it should be introduced in a more gradual, process. So you see
Mhm.
that people get to determine the pace of change. People who have, buy-ins in the status quo get to determine the the pace of change. And so they get to determine how many women, how many young people, how many critical ideas they can allow, which sort of which sort of media houses they can allow to criticize them, which sort of intellectuals, they almost always they go for comedians and intellectuals, especially in North Africa. They like going for intellectuals and comedians because a comedian would make people laugh at you. And if people laugh at you and people see that the emperor is naked, that is actually not a very good thing. You don't want the emperor to be laughed at. So there's all of these things. And so because we come from very conservative societies and we have people who determine the pace of change, it means that the pace of change is actually at their own whim. That is one way to look at it. Another way is to sort of investigate how they put down youth movements, right? There's a very interesting case in Algeria where youth uprising or a potential youth uprising was pinned down on Morocco. And if anyone knows African geopolitics, Morocco and Algeria are not friends. Morocco and Algeria are not friends. And so the moment Algerian youth started, congregating on social media with the intention of hitting the streets, it was blamed on Morocco. And you know what the government gets to do when it says that, right? It gets to just tag you as terrorists. It gets to tag you as enemies of the state. Enemies of the state. And you do not want to be charged, with treason. And so that is another way that they can stifle it. There's also another way where leaders of social movements are always called into rooms and, conversations are had and handshakes happen. And when handshakes happen, you realize that mouths become silent. These things happen. I was part of youth movements in Ghana, so I know how these things happen. There more than a few. Pardon?
Into a room? Did you do a handshake?
I think they realized for a very long time that because I was non-partisan, I was actually more ideological, that I am a socialist. They realized, oh, you can't do anything with this guy because at least he's not about, this party or that party. He's about class. And since he's about class, his target is the class interest in both leading political parties. So that's another way that they stifle youth movements. They actually target the leaders of the youth movements. The third way we need to look at it is to look at, Miley was talking about how, and Miley and Sandra, you pre-said that the youth are the masses and the youth are in the majority. But the truth of the matter is that because Africa is a young continent, and by young continent we mean the demographic is young, it also means that a lot of people in Africa do not have material capital. And so since they do not have material capital, they do not have material safety. And that is actually a very key issue in going onto the street. If you do not have material safety, if you do not have a place to sleep, a job, job security, if you do not have all of these material securities, it is very rare to see people hitting the streets or at least committed to a cause that is sustainable and long-term. And so we need to look at it. Although we are in the masses, because of a lack of material security for a lot of us, the change that we need, the energy that we need, because most people are not standing on solid grounds.
Yeah, so you're thinking about where your next meal is going to come from,
exactly.
Right?
And so, masses being masses doesn't necessarily guarantee.
Can Mylan jump in real quick?
And I do hear that about the material capital, you're right, but you also look at what just happened in Madagascar. Those people, I would say, they are the representation of what you're saying, of the people with material capital and the material safety. But guess what they had? The material presence. Ooh. So, and this is what I'm going to tell you is teamwork will outbeat the smartest individual any day. Yeah. Because you see, think about it. They have this guy who they were able to get the military to side with them. This is the guy who controlled all of that. And one thing that we've learned about Africa, and it's becoming newer to me as I start doing more homework on history, is Africa it's a weird monolith, right? Africa will see one of the other continents do it, and they're like, oh, so they do that. Let's think about this. Yeah. And I think this Madagascar movement, it's a seed that has been planted right now, because this wasn't, and Fanta, I know you might think the West had something to do with it. They could. I'm looking at it for face value of just saying that the people got fed up and did this. Yeah. And I think that Africa has this approach to look at things and to say, hey, they did that in their country. What if we did this? And I don't think that's the ideal way for Africa to gain its footing. But I do think that people are starting to not want to take that anymore.
Well, what did I
10 seconds,
say,
10
right?
seconds.
Nee,
Fanta,
I
Fanta,
think,
10
yeah,
seconds.
Nee,
Sorry.
go for
I'm
it.
so sorry.
Nee, finish and then Fanta can come in.
It would not be fair to say that we learn. I mean, we do learn from other people, and everyone is supposed to learn from someone. But it would not be fair to say that Africa sort of just looks at what is happening somewhere else and then we take it. What has been known as the Arab Spring started in Tunisia. It started in Tunisia. This recent spate of Gen Z protests started in Kenya. I don't know if you've forgotten. It started last year in Kenya. It wasn't in
Yeah.
Nepal. It started in Kenya. So we are we are agents of inception. We start some of these things. Also, to your point about Madagascar, it's true. These people trooped to the streets, but who have they replaced Rajolina, the runaway president with? They've replaced him with a military leader who saw an opportunity to just go, oh yeah, I support these young people. And they've replaced him with that. You know the interesting thing, Rajolina also saw an opportunity to jump onto youth protest in 2009.
Yeah, that's
He saw an
exactly how he
opportunity.
came
That's what
into
happened.
power. Yeah.
And so when I keep saying that some of these things are just we just going along very vicious cycles, this is what I mean. That there are structural elements that we need to confront with. Apart from the big picture, Africa must unite and Black is beautiful, whatever, that's all good. But you need to confront the class and structural interests that are at play.
Well, there are
Yeah.
there are a few points we have to consider. What do they say about an idle mind is a perfect place for devil worship, right? A perfect place for distraction. So you have what should be a demographic dividend, right? For Africa becoming a demographic debt. I mentioned this last week. Because you have the youth, to your point, who do not have access to raw capital. Most are trying to fend for where their next meal comes from, right? They're in a very dire socioeconomic situation. In fact, the youth unemployment rate on the continent, I believe, is upward 35%. So it's quite high, but we are not without options. I think one thing that we often negate, and sometimes as young people, right, we have a bursting of energy, and we often just want to act. We tend to be very impulsive. And I appreciate the protest in Madagascar because you saw that it was very unstructured. It was a group of young people who had similar ideas and, frankly, wanted to see change. Like you have a country where, I mean, and this is very common for a lot of African countries, lack of running water, lack of
Hmm.
electricity, right? How do you function in 2025 as a human being without access to these things? Now we can say, look at people like in the villages, they're able to get water from wells and like what have you. But should that really be the case? We're talking of a continent that has minerals on their soil that are worth trillions of dollars, but they're only good enough for export. We have timbers, right? That some of the largest forests in the world are in Africa, but they're only good for those. But those timbers are only good to cut and export. We can't even make benches for our school children. In this day and age, 2025, African school children are still sitting on cinder blocks. They're still sitting on mud blocks in classrooms.
Yeah.
Where are we?
Yeah.
What type of world is this? So we have to understand that while the capital access, right, while that liquidity might not be there for 80% of this continent, and yes, we are in the majority, right? We have to start being a bit more intentional of how we go about demanding change, right, and
Yeah.
not be so impulsive. One of the other things that can be done, because we see when you ask the average African youth, they're not happy with their government. I think the number was at 77+%. They are completely dissatisfied with the leadership that they're seeing today. And the next question that comes, if you had the chance to stay here or to leave, what would you do? They will absolutely say, absolutely take me out of here, right? So we see this exodus happening, that's been happening for so long. But what we don't realize is that it's draining the brain capacity, the intellectual capacity of the continent. We see our brightest and smartest get poached by these international companies, right, in the West. And is it their fault? No, we too have some type of responsibility. Now, Sandra mentioned earlier, and it's very true. You have African young people, millennials, Gen Zs, who are leading Microsoft, right? Who are leading billion-dollar projects and programs at Microsoft, at your Bank of America, at your JP Morgans, at your Morgan Stanleys, and the list goes on, Boeing, the list goes on. Do you think they do not want to come back home and replicate that success? But it's about having the opportunity to do that. Look, you have, like, I think the number was at 1 million, 1+ million Africans in the diaspora has postgraduate degrees. Postgraduate degrees. Think about that. Think about repatriating that. What type of growth, the burst of transformation that could happen. It could be massive, or it would be massive, as I should say. But these people are not good enough to come back home and even hold a civil service position, because the people in the diaspora are looked at, the leaders, right? These cabals, these grandfathers look at the young people who have already proven their success in these global Fortune 500 companies as threats. They are only good enough for their money. Africans in the diaspora, and we've mentioned this before, remit over 100 billion annually. That's 3 times the aid that the entire continent receives. Why do you think these people who are so competent that foreigners, right, see their value and give them their multi-trillion-dollar entities to run, but you as an African leader cannot see the same opportunity to give them access or a position as a director or as a minister or as a civil servant? Is because deep down, these African leaders are scared to their boots. There are pussycats. Let's call them what they are.
And I don't think it's deep down. I don't even think it's right on the surface level.
They're pussycats, because you will say, look, these people in the diaspora who literally remits their money, their hard-earned money to us, we should give them a seat at the quote-unquote very rotten and stinky table, right, to contribute their ideas. But their ideas are never valued. We'll take your money, but screw your ideas, because you are not going to come and topple our retirement home. We're getting our funding by the hour, right? Don't come ruin that for us. Come clean our poop.
And this is a big one, right? This is a really, really big one. I always say that the diaspora is the most undertapped superpower for the continent of Africa. It is. Because when you talk about expertise, it's here in the diaspora, right? When you talk about experience, I mean, we are just not leveraging the diaspora, right, as we could in the development of the continent. And it's a hugely missed opportunity.
Like, they're not.
It's a missed opportunity. So, I want to flip the lens as well on this one, is how can the diaspora leverage its soft power, right? Because you mentioned some of them, Fanta, that we're sending 100 billion, our economies need us. They need the diaspora to keep sending remittances back home. So how can we leverage our soft power, media, business, advocacy, whatever it is, to influence systems change on the continent without holding formal office, right? Because that's where we are now. We're not given the opportunity to come home and to lead, right? But what can we do with the positions that we have and the seat that we have at our table and the influence that we have? What can we do? I would like to hear practical solutions and reflections from all of you.
Close your doors, right? Do not allow these political leaders they only see you when they need you to raise money for their campaigns. They will fly to the West, right? They come and have these town halls. They do these fundraisers, and you thinking you're supporting progressive ideas. You write those checks for them. Establish a political entity that funds like young people with progressive ideas, with true progressive ideas. You can establish, we talk about that diaspora fund, not just for infrastructure projects, but to also support political candidates with
Yeah.
true progressive ideas, so you can have that real seat. That's building that table that I speak about. We need to build our own table. And look, if someone is not going to allow you into a room, they're not going to give you a seat to sit down, kick their seats and build your own seat. And that's how we do that, establishing those entities, whether it's for infrastructure or to support those progressive candidates. And look, there are a few countries, or I think a majority of the countries today do not allow for diaspora, for Africans in the diaspora who hold other passports to compete on the continent. By establishing those entities where you serve as the pocket, as the checkbook, as the bank for those progressive candidates, you're going to see the transformation that you truly need to see by installing these young people into cabinets, into the legislators who can create policies to change, right? To change and undo those policies that prevent you and your voice from participating in your in the progression or transformation in your home countries. You can do that. And you know what? Run for office. Why the heck are you sitting so comfortable in someone else's home as if to say this is where you were born? Even if you were born here, your bloodline is still tied to Africa. Run for office. You can do that. Don't sit there and just write them checks. And when it comes down to it, you too are culpable. We are supporting these gerontocratic leaders, right? Who at the end of the day do not serve us and do not serve our families, do not serve the purposes that we thought they were going to serve. So these are practical things that people in the diaspora, Africans in the diaspora, including myself, can do. And that's why I'm going to run for office. Come 2029, in the next election, I'm actually going to put my name on a ballot. That's what we can do.
Okay. My goodness. Nee, Mylene, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that, like I said, Africa's view as of right now is the older you are, the more experienced you are. And that has not, it hasn't boded well, right? And as I said, we go weeks back, what is it that Africa, one of our questions was, what is it that Africa brings to the table? And it's genuinely, it's all of these, it's not cohesive. We're all over the place. We have this happening there, that happening, and it's not anything of structure. And it all comes from leadership. Mm-hmm. What is something that we see with the leadership? It's usually outdated approaches. Mm-hmm. It's usually not anything that's front facing to change the dynamic of where the country needs to go.
I have a specific question for you. You came to the U.S. when you were 2. Right? 2 years old. And you haven't been back to Liberia. But clearly your passion and, your interest in Liberia is very, very, very strong. So for someone like you, and there are many people like you who are either born here or came at a young age, have never been back, but want to serve, right? So from your point of view, going back to my question about how can we leverage our soft power, the diaspora, how can we leverage our soft power to drive systemic change? Because at this point, I think that's where we need to be focused on is design thinking, systemic change. How does that come to, how does that come to shape, right? And how do we influence that with the, whatever power that we have? So how do you see that for people like you?
Well, how I see it for people like me, it goes to what Fanta's point mentioned, right? They'll take my money to go over there. We've all been, if you're a Liberian, you've had the story of you sent money to get a business started and then the business disappeared, right, Fanta? You sent that money and this trusted family person, and or
to build a house and it never gets built.
Let's not even get into that one. Let's ship a couple of cars over. I've got some stories in regards to that. So for me, it's like I do need to see the business structure. It's that matters first before money gets involved. And I think that's a concept that, and I'll speak specifically to Liberians, that I don't think that's something they are willing to understand. You bring someone like Fanta or myself who can go there and really offer real change, but we're like, before we talk money with you, we need to have systems and structures in place. Mm-hmm. That because it's not tangible, You can't identify that by wetting somebody's palm. Oh, you talking too much American business. That is what my uncle told me. He said, you're going to go there with your business ideas. They're going to tell you talking too much American business. And I have an uncle who grew up there, who he has lost interest on 3 different business ventures. Until where he's telling me, hey, they're going to tell you talking too much American. He's like, you're going to find yourself in something you don't want to be in.
Yeah.
So structure needs to be at first, because we're already getting the money over there, but the money's not doing what it needs to do. So we need people on the ground like Afanta, like myself, who will go there and say, look, before we really start giving money into this, what are the fail safes that work? And I don't think that is what Africa, and I'll speak for my area, for Liberia, that's not what we are really ready for. We don't want structure. We just want to keep the retirement club going, as Fanta mentioned. It's who's going to be in next. We're one of the countries with a president that is older. We're one of the countries. And it scares me, because I'm like, everyone in his cabinet is just set up to just come in and not really offer any reprieve to the country. So we need structure.
We need structure. And I think that the points that you guys are making are great points, but then it also comes to the lack of mobilization in the diaspora, right? Because I mean, if, Mylene, you decide I'm not sending my money to Liberia, let's be honest, that's not going to move the needle for the type of change that we need. But imagine if 1,000 Mylenes or 10,000 Mylenes are doing all of this in a coordinated effort with very strategic goals, right? Then it changes the conversation. But realistically, that mobilization is just not happening in the diaspora. And I also think that that is a very big piece of the conversation, because I really think we need to move from attacking the problem to solutions, right? And this is part of this is part of the discussion that we need to have about what a systems change, would look like. It starts from mobilization. So I want to hear, as we kind of wrap up here, I want to try and end at 1 hour today. But as we wrap up here, I just want you guys to, let's end with some solutions on how we think about the ideal African leadership pipeline. What should it look like in the next 10 years? And how do we start building that today, right now? Nee?
Playing my role as the villain on this panel, I have a few things I disagree with.
I think you're
Go for it. What do you disagree with?
Especially with my experience in Ghana, right? My experience in Ghana is that people in the diaspora usually have privileged access. I remember one of the commenters on our video saying, well, I seem to protect, especially when we're talking about the Burkina Faso issue. And the commenter said, he or she thinks that I am protecting the feelings of privileged middle class, and because I'm one. Yes, I am one of the privileged middle class in Ghana. And so I do know that people from the diaspora actually have privileged access to power and politics in Ghana. So this idea that they've been stopped, they've been impeded, and that they are not having access is untrue. At least for Ghana, it's untrue. They have privileged access to power. They know politicians that people who grew up in Ghana don't know. They have access to politicians that constituents can't even phone. So they do have that pipeline. It exists. Also.
So what are you saying? Are you saying that the diaspora is also enabling the culture in Africa? Is that what you're saying?
It's coming I'm coming to the second point.
Okay.
It's because a lot of the time, some elements within the diaspora would like to replicate a sort of tiered society where, we are the people who are coming from the new world, and we have the people who are the most intelligent, and we have the capital, and we can't come here and just be one of these people. we need to have a tiered society, a society where the hierarchy actually benefits us. And I've had problems with a lot of people who would like to sort of replicate a tiered society. And we're talking about tiered society as if it's novel. The whole idea of Liberia is it's one of tiered society. Freed slaves from the New World went back to Africa and thought that they were better than the natives that they saw there. And so we're actually very familiar with the idea of tiered society. And the reason I'm bringing that is to say, I would wish that when people say, we love Africa, we want to see Africa do well, they would confront the interest, the structures that actually makes these things difficult. It is okay to say we should unite. It's okay to say Black is beautiful. It's okay.
Solution,
I
right?
love all of that. So the solution, my proposal is to invest in communities and defer to communities. The communities should tell you what is good for them. You don't I can't go from London to Accra or to a village in the hinterlands of Ghana and tell them what is good for them. I should not be able to go from New York or wherever to go and tell locals what is good for them. I should go and I should add my expertise as well as my capital. But then I should also understand that in order to upend the inequalities that my countrymen face, I don't have to go and replace their overlords over there just because I was educated in these parts, just because I've had access to a capital and I've worked a long time in, at Wall Street. And no, you can't go there and take over from the overlords. You'd have to go there and be immersed in the community. You have to go there and to guarantee workers' rights. Workers' rights. We talk about Africa so much and we've never mentioned workers' rights on the continent. Everyone with very bold ideas and how billionaires can fundamentally change Africa, and they've never mentioned labor rights. So if you actually believe in Africa and you would like to invest in Africa, please don't go with the expectation that you need to be the new overlord just because you are pissed with the gerontocrats who are there. No. We shouldn't do that. We should immerse ourselves in community and we should be part of the priorities of the local communities.
Mylan?
No, I mean, I think I went already, but I'm listening to that, and I'll put it like this, Nee. I'll say that I think when I say setting up structure, this is what I'm talking about, like encompassing. Is me, I focus on the time that I'm going to put into it. So to expand a little bit, that is what the structure looks like. Because, and I'll reference Madagascar again, yes, it had sequences and steps to where it got to. As unorganized as it still was a structure. It still was something that was put in place. And that is what's going to be important, is going in and learning what the community needs, going in and because Africa is bigger as a service provider than anything. Because in order for all of our resources to be the max efficiency, the service providers, the people with the skills, we need to understand them on the ground because they're the ones who are going to fuel this amazing transition. So yeah, I agree with you on that, Nee.
Yeah.
But it is the structure that needs to be put in place, is understanding the people. And I don't think that folks who are over there, we're going to go over there with the original Americo-Liberian approach that that you brought up. That's not what, for us, at least I speak for me, and I get the sentiment from Fanta too. It's about saying this is where we are from, and we want to be able to come and go there and feel comfortable and know that we have a solid representative. As a country.
I think it's because I hear a lot of people say what Nee is saying, right? A lot of our brothers and sisters back home is that, oh, you guys are privileged, you come home, and it's sad to hear because they don't understand the immigrant story, right? It is not an easy journey to be an immigrant in this country. And it may seem like, and I want to go back to a point that Fanta made in one of our first discussions where she said, I'm not here by choice. I'm not here by choice, right? And she made such a strong point about what led her to come to America, which was the Civil War, right? So, in so many ways, many of us are here because of failed leadership. And I often tell people when you look at my story, right? I love my country. I love Ghana to bits and pieces. But if I were in Ghana, I would not have had the opportunities that I've had. And as much as people, talk about America, I could never be ungrateful to America. And this is emotional because I have to look at what my life would have been if I was in Ghana. And unfortunately, it would not have been what it is today. I would not have the platform, the education. I went to school for free in this country. Okay? Because I had potential, and there was a system in place that was designed to recognize potential. And that's important because we don't have those systems in Africa. There are so many more people back home who are much more talented than me, but they never had an opportunity. So I could never be grateful or be ungrateful to America, no matter what is happening here right now. I could never be ungrateful. And this is what we need to understand. And I try to, when I'm talking to my brothers and sisters back home, is to explain that the immigrant journey may look like we're in a place of privilege, but it's not. It is an ongoing, the journey has been a struggle. Many of us go through a lot of challenges to get to where we are today. And we're not here because we wanted to, is because we didn't have opportunities back home. That's what this stems from. And I see a lot of people using this as an excuse to not give diaspora folks, people want to come home, the opportunity to serve, the opportunity to contribute their skills and their talent because of the mindset that they think they're better. So many people. And it's frustrating because a lot of people just want to come back and use the skills, their talents in a productive way to help their countries grow and develop.
It's all good. I mean, I think good.
It's very sad, right? Because I'm also getting emotional, James, just hearing a tidbit of your story. But it's very true. And sometimes you give it all up, right? You sacrifice and you go home and you're told, oh, they're American gay, or like this American boy and a small guy and a small boy. Who do you think you are? Like, and it's so disheartening because you come here and they put you on this pedestal, right? They see your excellence and they see what you bring to the table. And that's how they judge you, right? Based on your merits, not based on your tribal association, your background, like what have you. And we really have to get there. We need a systemic change because continuing down this path is not going to serve any of us, especially those on the continent. Look, we cannot compete in a digital future, right, with analog leadership. It's just not going to work. And you think you're punishing us because we want to participate in our local elections or local or the legislators and the cabinet. You think you're going to punish us by locking us out, right? By keeping us and voting for these people who give you nothing, who do nothing for you, who don't even know how to transform your life, but you want us to take money and give it to you. That's the relationship you want to have with us. It's like, give me your money, but I don't care for what else you have to say. And it's ridiculous. And that's why I keep saying it. Yes, you're absolutely right. There are some people in the diaspora who benefit from sometimes donating to these political parties, right? They have this privileged connection. They know the ministers, they know the whomever, but you're not influencing policy. That's what you don't understand. You might be able to call that minister, like when the police stops you and maybe tows your car, like to call them to come and release your car, but you don't influence policy. So what does that make you? What does
Yeah, but
that
I don't
make
think
you?
the
So
point for them. I don't think.
solutions we have to establish, right? We have to, and I had it like written down like someone here. We have to galvanize. We have to establish a diaspora political network. It is so important. Look, whether it's someone launches a website today, right, to get everyone who is interested in the diaspora to run for office to sign on to that website.
Yeah.
That's the first step. We can do that. That's a digital way, so you don't have to worry about going to meet in a cafe or what have you. Let's build a website. Everyone who's interested, right? Let's share it on the different platforms. Everyone who's interested in running like for office, submit your name there, right? And let's start like submitting ideas, talking about how we can raise funds. Because one thing that is not going to change our situation. It's just the talking. We need to get our hands
Yep.
dirty. We need to roll up our
Yep.
sleeves and we need to get our hands in the mud. We
Yeah.
have to speak with those back home. You are not more Liberian. You're not more Ghanaian. You're not more South African. You're not more Kenyan. You're not more Gabonese. You're not more Gambian. You're not more Senegalese than I am. I too am Senegalese. I too can run for office. You will not deny me of that privilege, of that right. This is my home. We have to own that. We cannot own this foreign passport. We appreciate the life it has given us, but deep down, we want to contribute and we want to serve. Participation matters, and we must run for office. If you're a young, my final word, if you're a young person out there in the diaspora or at home thinking, oh, I don't have the money, do not be limited by the lies they have told you psychologically. Understand, put your name down on a piece of paper, galvanize, reach out to whomever it is that you have to run for office. In your upcoming election, my challenge to every single African out there is to, if you know you have the capability, the competence, which is what the fundamentally what is required, run for office.
And I mean, I think the way that I view all of this is a ticking time bomb. The reason why, for me personally, I'm so passionate about this because I see a continent, the youngest continent on the planet. What that represents is potential. What it represents is opportunity. And a country that cannot nurture potential, think about that. Who are you as a country if you cannot identify and nurture potential? And that's what we're missing out on. Because again, I will use my life as an example. I remember, when I left Ghana, I was 11. So I still, I have friends, I have people that I grew up with. And when I look at my life and their life, the only difference was that I came to America. That's the only difference. And their life is completely different from mine. Many of them were smarter than I in class. Many of them. But when you look at our lives today, it pales in comparison. And the only difference is I was able to come to America, get someone invested in me. That's why the reason why I started this podcast was addressing the whole DEI thing. And just how much, because I'm a beneficiary of the system that was designed to look out for people like me, an immigrant. My parents couldn't put me through school. They didn't have the money. They came here. They were working hard to put food on the table. But someone, somewhere, a program somewhere saw potential in a high school student who came here, was barely speaking English because I lived in Italy. Someone saw potential and said, hey, let's give this girl a scholarship to Syracuse University to study communications. Someone saw that and paid for me $60,000 a year so I can get free education and make something of myself. If African countries, our nations back home cannot do that for young people, then they have failed us and they continue to fail us. And this is the story. And this is why we must mobilize, because we cannot continue to see this happen. Wasted potential. When I think about our continent, that's what I think, wasted potential. So this is a charge for all of us. It's a charge for all of us. I hope that for all of our viewers who are watching, that there's a takeaway for each of you, from this discussion. As Fanta said, let's start moving from talk to action. I love the idea that you proposed, some sort of a political, what did you call it, Fanta? Some sort of online
political network. Yep. Let's establish a website. Yep.
Let's get these ideas going. We owe it to our children and their children. We owe it to them to disrupt the system, to demand for something better. So I'm going to end there. This has been, I didn't expect to go that route, right? But sometimes it calls for it. Anybody want any final words from anyone before we end?
Paradise has never reached anyone.
Yeah.
We should be courageous and understand that, that's the thing about education, right? You see in African schools, and Mali just banned French history in their schools, and I hope more countries do follow, because if the only narrative is one that is not yours, what stories do you reference for inspiration as a youth?
Yeah. Nee, did you want to? Oh, yeah, go for it, Marlon.
Be in a history book for them. 50, 60 years, kids are talking about Mylan King and Fanta Kamara came back to Liberia with the Great Return and was able to change that. You get what I imagine being that. As I listen to, Sandra, your story, Fanta, most Liberians, we almost share the same story. Like, I could talk to a Liberian from any state. Our story is the same. Me, you grew up like the Fresh Prince, so I don't know if I can relate. Messing with you. But what I'm saying is, it's to be a part of that story. So I do feel like I want to be a part of this movement.
Yeah.
Right. And I want us to really, and from this, as we establish, I want us to really find an avenue to come up with a solution to say, don't be scared. Failing is a part of the process. Yeah. And I think that's a big part for the folks who have come over here and gotten established. Some of them are probably scared now. I know I got deterred when I tried to start my little rice and car business and got that. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. But the truth of the matter is that is par for the course.
Yeah.
It's par for the course. And that's what's going to make, and I believe ultimately when this does happen, this is what's going to make the story even sweeter.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Nee, why don't you close us out, Nee? Close us today.
Yeah, so I'm just speaking to, I'm building on my initial comments at the beginning of this. I've not said much today, especially because I do not want to be called a sellout. And I think that actually hit me because, again,
I see that it did. Nee, you can't. No,
wait, Sandra. Of all the views that I shared, I think the reason it hits me is that Fanta says a lot of big picture stuff, and they are inspiring big picture stuff. Unite, Africa must unite, Africa must do this, and these are slogans, right? These are things that we've been chanting for the last 100 years. So imagine that she has her turn to say that, and then I go, yes, Africa must unite, and what's the point of a conversation?
Where does that take us? Yeah.
So my point is, I actually do agree.
Well, Nee, what matters is what we think, Nee. We don't think you're a sellout. You're not a sellout.
Wait. Let me finish.
Ideological
Let me
stuff,
finish.
right?
Oh God! Just when we're about to end it.
I think that's the thing.
Run for office.
No.
Take it beyond.
No.
Take it beyond and practicalize it. I'm actually gonna roll up my sleeves and get my hands dirty. So it goes beyond the ideology, right?
Great.
I'm running for office.
I'm an ideologue. Great. But I'm an ideologue. I don't shy away from that. I don't running away from the fact that I am a socialist. And so whenever I look at Africa's problem, the first thing that comes into my mind is material relations, class interest. These are the two things that come into my mind. I told you, there are different kinds of Pan-Africanism. There's a reason why Jomo Kenyatta's Pan-Africanism was still Kenyan nationalism, or at least Kikuyu nationalism. And his Pan-Africanism was not the same thing as Nkrumah's Pan-African. So we have different kinds of Pan-Africanism. I come from the sort of Pan-Africanism that advocates socialist proposals. And so if you listen to me, you're listening to an ideologue. I don't shy away from that. I think the reason the sellout thing hit me is that I am actually very critical of corporations. I am the only one on this panel who said that I'm suspicious of Western capital in Africa. Do you guys remember? I have said that I'm suspicious of Western capital in Africa. And you guys said you welcome Western capital if it has good intentions. And I said, I don't care about their intentions. Because the thing about capitalism is that it only has one thing: to create a permanent underclass and to exploit. That's the whole thing about capitalism. It doesn't have good intentions. It's not even a bad intention. It's just, that's what it does. And so whether the capital comes from a white-skinned man, a black-skinned man, or a brown-skinned man, I do not care. The idea that capitalism is the way we think we can actually secure African liberation is a problem. And so anytime I hear, submissions, mine is to talk about the challenges we face, the challenges that are endemic to our continent, the challenges that are endemic to the structures upon which we've built our lives, the challenges thereof, in our relations with the rest of the world. It is not to say that I am negative. It is not to say that I do not believe in Africa. Again, if I didn't believe in Africa, I wouldn't be part of this.
Right. No, of course.
And if I didn't believe,
of course.
And if my views are just, if I was I don't know which corporations are giving money to socialists to just come.
Maybe,
and say
you know what,
things
Nee,
that
maybe you
are
need to bring some of
anti-corporatist.
your links to some of your research work, because Nee has done some incredible research on
I
a
am
lot
always
of.
proposing books. Last
Yeah,
week, the
I
funny thing,
mean,
last week I mentioned Amilcar Cabral in Class Suicide, and so I thought that at least if someone interacts with Amilcar Cabral's work on class suicide, they will see that my point is that those who are of the upper class or whatever should actually commit a sort of symbolic suicide. What he means by symbolic suicide is put away your material interest and get your hands dirty, like what Fanta is saying. So yes, my views are ideological, my exposition is ideological, but the idea that I am actually cautioning, I'm cautioning against all this hoorah, like the American Army does, hoorah, and this sort of zombie, whatever.
The
It doesn't
hoorah is
mean
very
that
necessary for
it doesn't mean that I'm
motivation.
anti-African. It
No,
doesn't
but the
mean that I'm
hoorah
anti-African. I'm
is
very
very
African.
necessary, right? The hoorah is very necessary for
Fanta,
motivation.
I think
If you're
that's
going to
the
be a
thing. That's the thing you
disruptor,
do very well. I respect that
no,
actually.
but I'm
I'm being
also a
honest.
problem solver, and just limiting me to be like a cheerleader, like I absolutely,
No.
I despise that. I am not just a cheerleader. I'm not just an ideologue. I am a practical person. My ideology translates to practical solutions, and that is the difference. I know I'm an acquired taste, right? Like most people only just hoorah. I am not just a hoorah-er, right? I have led billion-dollar projects for Fortune
Okay,
500
I learned a new
companies. I
word
don't do
today.
that by
Hoorah!
Yeah.
problem
Yeah,
solved.
I
And
guess
my
that's the
point.
point. I think that's the only thing I wanted to. I just so Fanta, Sandra,
Yeah.
if you could include my email
Mhm.
in the captions in the Chiron, just so that I would invite anyone who
Are you
wants
sure
me to
about
see
that?
something.
You want your
Yeah,
email out there?
no, I
Nee,
don't
you're
mind.
I think
No, I
let the
don't
comments
mind.
be the comments, because you see we're doing
I
this
don't mind.
publicly, right? And I'm gonna
Yeah,
tell you
because I
guys,
actually
right?
think
No,
I actually think the goal
I
of
think that's where it starts getting too personal, and like, look, I would say I'm the least popular on the panel, right? And so when I go through looking to see what people say about me, this far few between. So at the end of the day, I think we have a great variance of where it's, you have to find to who's our popular person. You're popular, but for a different aspect, and people like you in the middle. So what I'm saying is, I think keep it here, keep it to what it is, because it becomes too personalized. Because an email could lead to, and I don't know if you do Instagram, could lead to your Instagram, it could lead
First of
to
all,
this.
I doubt that
no.
you will have
But
time to
it's
respond to the thousands of emails that I
Yeah.
know you will receive.
yeah,
But
but
Anyway,
what
I
this
mean, I think
means is
yeah.
we can have a forum, right? And I actually think this is a great idea for us to have a forum where we can engage with our audience and
True.
hear their perspective. So
Yeah,
again,
I think
new
that's good.
idea. Yeah, I think
they
that
would
would be
love
good.
I
you
mean,
on that.
I don't
They
have any
would
social
love you
media.
on
I'm
that
not on
I'm
forum.
saying
Twitter.
that
I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on
Email
any
Sandra, just
social
They would
media.
love you on that forum, and I
My
think
point
that
is,
I won't do
I
that to
think
me. I would do that
if
to me.
for me, if I think that if you're well intentioned about Africa, if the whole idea, if the reason you're going through YouTube comments and leaving mean statements because you really, really love Africa, that's why you are leaving mean comments. then
we
you should
need
also have time.
Well, you know what?
Then you should
I'll
also
leave it
have
to our
time to
audience.
at least send me an email.
No,
Send me
I'll leave it to our
an
audience,
email.
guys. Let us know in the comments if you think we should do a virtual summit, a virtual some sort of programming where you all be a part of it and we can dissect and have this conversation together. You know, in a virtual conference or summit. I don't even know what they call it nowadays format. Let us know in the comments where you think we should go from here, because we've made a lot. I mean, this has been such a great conversation today. Thank you guys so much for your time. We will pick up next week. We don't know what topic we're going to delve into, but I'm sure it will be just as passionate as this week. So thank you all again.
We don't even know if great grandpa won by that time.
we I'm sure we will know by then. So yeah, exactly. That's probably what we'll talk about.
2 weeks.
So predictions. Let's get some predictions. Who think he's actually going to win again?
I think you should ask about the percentage points because we know he's going to win. Ask about the percentage.
Okay, so you all think that it's gonna go in his favor.
Yeah, I think he's going to get something around 60%.
I think so. I mean, at least from everything I'd been seeing up into this, I was just like, oh, they're not even really trying to hide that they're giving this guy the election right now.
Wow. Fanta, what do you think?
The change that I know some Cameroonians want in electing or maybe possibly electing a 79-plus-year-old leader is still not where we need to be. It's a change, and if it happens, we welcome it, right? Because it's a change after 43 years.
Mm-hmm.
However, we need to be thinking more progressive than that. If that happens, we welcome it. If you go back to Bia, I don't want to hear a single Cameroonian say zilch. Nada, nothing. Don't say nothing about nothing. You don't get to speak the entire year, right? Or the entire term. If it's 4 years term, 6 years term, I don't want to hear nothing from no Cameroonian. And I have some friends who are Cameroonian.
Yeah. Nothing. Can you imagine? I just see Cameroonians introducing themselves wherever they go and be like, oh, your president is 92. How's that going?
The thing is, the country promises you the vote. It didn't promise you that it will be counted. It promises you the vote. Oh my God. It didn't promise you that it will be counted.
We cannot be cowards, guys. We cannot be cowards.
Oh my goodness.
Or pounding the pavement. Look, if they're not going to give us the key nicely, we have to take those keys from them.
Well, let's pray for Cameroon. Let's pray for peace and calm, during this time. And we'll see how it goes. Thank you, guys. This has been great. All right. See y'all next week.